Today, all of our troops have left Iraq. Next year, an international coalition will end its war in Afghanistan, having achieved its mission of dismantling the core of al-Qaeda that attacked us on 9/11.
That was President Obama at the UN nearly a year ago, telling the world how he had managed to end a decade of war after destroying the core of al-Qaeda. What a difference a year makes. Tomorrow he will return to the United Nations as the U.S. military returns to the fight in Iraq and now Syria, and separately bombing an al-Qaeda group. And Americans are being warned that al-Qaeda is again a direct and imminent threat to the homeland. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry is here live for the president's message today. Wow.
Yeah, well, look, it turns out we did not end a decade of war, so the president is looking for a justification for military action. So message number one today was, look, this Khorasan group of former al-Qaeda operatives, it might be about to launch terror attacks inside America. So we need to act. So that's why we see the administration putting this together about a terror group we had heard very little about, basically until the last few days as they started feeding that out there. And remember how different that is from the president saying during the 2012 campaign, al-Qaeda's on the run, and just in January, just a few months ago, saying, you know, the al-Qaeda leftovers, the spin-off groups, the affiliates are basically the JV squad. Well, now the JV squad is something that we're going after. The second message he had today was a bit stronger. He's on stronger ground saying we've got a broad coalition, 5 Arab nations joining these airstrikes against Syria. That's important. That was progress for him. What he left out, though, are the countries that are not joining. No NATO allies, like Turkey in the region, but also the UK has not stepped up with airstrikes. They've given us intelligence, but not airstrikes. France, airstrikes in Iraq, not in Syria. But interesting tonight, new information. The president told an audience here in New York City, it was American leadership that brought these 5 Sunni Arab nations to the table to fight Sunni terrorists. It was American leadership, he said. What audience was he speaking to? A fundraiser for Senate Democrats here in New York City, talking about American leadership.
Ed, thank you.
Good to see you.
And from 2012 and the campaign trail, you may recall then Senator Joe Biden. No, 2012, 2008. We're talking 2012, he was Vice President Joe Biden, slamming Governor Mitt Romney's foreign policy and suggesting that a President Romney would start a war in Syria.
He said it was a mistake to end the war in Iraq and bring all of our warriors home. He implies by the speech that he's ready to go to war in Syria and Iran.
Mark Thiessen is a former chief speechwriter to President George W. Bush and a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Mitt Romney would start a war in Syria, Mark.
Yeah, that clip right there is pretty much sums up why the American people say that in polls show that if the election were held again today, Mitt Romney would win by 9 points. The Obama foreign policy is an absolute disaster, and in Iraq and Syria, it is a self-inflicted disaster, and precisely for the reason of what Joe Biden said in those quotes. Our military commanders warned President Obama that if you withdraw all of our troops, it's going to create a vacuum in Iraq that the terrorists will fill. According to Leon Panetta, the entire national security team warned him that he needed to arm and train the Syrian rebels, or that would create a vacuum in Syria that the jihadists would fill. But he didn't listen to them. He listened to Joe Biden. He withdrew all of our troops from Iraq. He didn't do anything about Syria, and the result is now in Syria, we have a terrorist safe haven where a terrorist group, Khorasan, was planning an imminent attack on the United States. That safe haven was created on Barack Obama's watch.